In this video, we're going to look at the structure and function of the leaf and relate its structure to its function. Okay, now the leaf is an organ, and it's the main organ of photosynthesis. And we're going to look at it from this. So we look here from this point of view. We are going to think about organs are made up of different tissues, and those tissues themselves are made up of cells, and so that's the level of organization. We're going to look at the different tissues in the leaf and see what each of them does. Right, now what we've got on the left, this diagram is a transverse section through a leaf, and just so you can visualize that, if I draw this little red circle here, basically that's what we're looking at a section through there. We chopped sort of thin slice of a leaf. Okay, so when we're looking at the leaf, it's as well to remember that it is the organ of photosynthesis. What is its job? It's to carry out photosynthesis. So we've got to think, carbon dioxide has got to be able to get to the leaf, and we'll have to think about that. Okay, so right, so we look at this. This is the top surface of the leaf over here. So the light is going to be coming, the sunlight is coming this way. That's the top. Okay. Let's start off with the first layer. This is called the epidermis. It's like the skin. It's a layer of cells. Its job is really protective, and it secretes this grey waxy layer here. It's called the waxy cuticle. And the purpose of that is to stop the leaf losing too much water and drying out. You've got the light shining down on it, so that's going to help water evaporate, so it needs to protect itself from that. Now you can see here there are two main groups of cells which contain chloroplasts. The epidermis doesn't contain any chloroplasts, so it's no photosynthesis going on there. So the cells which do contain chloroplasts, shown in green here, these ones are called the palisade cells, or sometimes the palisade mesophyll cells. And that's one tissue, palisade mesophyll. And then this layer here, this sort of thicker layer with big gaps in it, this is called the spongey mesophyll. It's called spongy because it's got those big air gaps in it. And they are the main sites of photosynthesis in the leaf and in the plant. Now, you can see the palisade cells. Well, they are packed very close together, so they're going to absorb all the light that's coming in through the from the top of the leaf. But they're only like one or sometimes two cells thick, because if they're too thick, then you'd have a problem of carbon dioxide diffusing into those cells. Now this gives you a clue why is the spongy mesophyll, why is it spongy? It's to allow the carbon dioxide to move about, to diffuse. And we can also see on the bottom layer of the cell here, the bottom layer, this is the lower epidermis. We have these holes here, which are called a stoma. And surrounding each stoma, you have two guard cells. We'll talk about those in a minute. There's two of them, that one and that one there. So the stoma is a hole, and that's really important because if you look at the equation, we've got to allow carbon dioxide to diffuse into the cell from outside. So if there's no holes, the carbon dioxide inside the leaf would very rapidly get used up by photosynthesis, and then the process would stop. So this allows CO2 to come in, and then the spongy mesophyll, because there's all these gaps, it allows it to diffuse all the way through. Eventually it can diffuse all the way through to the palisade layer as well. Also, it's important to have gaps in to allow the oxygen which is made to enable that to diffuse out of the cell and out of the stoma. Okay. Right, let's talk about the guard cells and the stoma. Now, being a leaf, the leaves are a bit of a liability to the plant because you need to have holes in them to let the CO2 out in, but that unfortunately allows water vapor to escape. Okay, and if water vapor escapes too much, then the plant is going to dry out, and even die. So the plant has got to be able to close the stoma when necessary. So let's see how that is achieved. Right. So here there's two stoma here. One on the left is open, and the one on the right is closed. Now, this word here, turgid, that means that those cells are full of water. Okay. And the water has entered those cells due to osmosis. And why is it in that? It's because these chloroplasts they're doing photosynthesis. So they're making glucose, and glucose is causing water to enter the cell by osmosis. So when the plant is actively photosynthesizing, then the stoma are open, allows the CO2 to go into the cell. Now, in the nighttime, or when the plant isn't photosynthesizing, it doesn't want the stoma open because it would just lose water, and that would no benefit. So what happens then is photosynthesis will stop, so there'll be no glucose, so water won't enter the cell due to osmosis. Okay, so they will become flaccid, and that causes the shape of the cells to shrink, and that has the effect of closing off the stoma there, so there's less water loss. So guard cells are pretty specialized cells. They're found around the stoma. They're unusual in that they do have chloroplasts, because most of the cells in the lower epidermis don't, and they're involved in controlling the opening and closing of the stoma. Okay, the last thing we need to look at now is this group of cells here, which in everyday language we would probably call this thing. You say, oh, that's a leaf vein. The proper name for it is called a vascular bundle, but okay, now it's made up of two different kinds of cells. You can probably see it's kind of split into half there. So I'll draw a little line there. So these cells on the lower side of that, they're called the phloem cells. The tubes, and the ones above it, so these ones here, they're called the xylem. Okay, let's think about the phloem first of all. What the phloem does is the phloem has got cells, they're long tubes, they stretch the length of the veins, and they're capable of transporting sugars and amino acids and other compounds in both directions. Okay, so when the leaf is photosynthesizing, you probably have sugar going mostly being transported towards the roots of the plant to be stored, whereas when the leaf is growing in early spring and it hasn't really started photosynthesizing properly, it's just a little bud, then it will need sugars to be transported up from the roots for growth. Now the xylem tubes are a much simpler affair. They're not really even alive. They're the sort of skeletons of dead cells, and the cell walls form these long, thin tubes, and water passes up the xylem. And the xylem is only one-way traffic. It's just water and dissolved minerals, and it comes all the way from the roots and ends up in the leaves. Right, the water can't go the other way at all. The water which reaches the end of the xylem will leave into the cells of the leaf by osmosis, because they've got things dissolved in the cells, and the cells will then lose that due to water evaporating, and that flow of water from the xylem up to the leaves, that's called transpiration, the transpiration stream. And obviously the plant tries to shut down transpiration as much as possible when it's not photosynthesizing, so it does that by closing the stoma. Right, so that's all of the things you need to know about the structure and the function of the leaf.